welcome to the latest episode of the Antisocial Chat Show. My name is Eleanor and I am Chief Copywriter and Undomestic Goddess at Creative Copywriting, and I'm here with my lovely host, Tara Tomiko, Digital Marketing Consultant. Hello, Tara.
Hi there. Hi, Eleanor. Good to see you again.
And you. And this week we've got quite an original theme going on.
We have. Very original.
We're going to talk about content and original content. In fact, we're going to ask the question, is there such a thing as an original idea? And I'd love to know your thoughts on this, Tara. Firstly, what are your thoughts about, especially in today's world, about original content? And the reason I ask is because I was shared an article this morning about a certain well-known figure, a chap in the SEO space, who allegedly has I guess he steals content. This is the allegation being made at him, or the way he researches his content, because he's an SEO guy, he looks at other people who are ranking really highly, and then you know how SEO people do, look at the keywords, see what ranks highly, uses maybe something like the skyscraper technique. But in this particular instance, the allegations being put his way are that he actually not so much copies and pastes the content, but copies the takeaways. So it's very similar to other high-ranking content. So it's a really interesting take. I personally think that is actually copying content, but obviously he doesn't. So I'd be interested to know your thoughts on that.
I'm really curious to know who it is, and I've got an idea of who because I've not heard about this. But yeah, the skyscraping technique. Maybe we should explain what that is to our listeners and our viewers. This is the one, because I haven't actually used it. Is this the one where you look at all the latest blog posts under a certain keyword, and then you kind of like build that up into your content so that your keywords is it?
Yeah, more or less. So you look at all the highest ranking posts and then you build it into your posts and make yours better, which, I haven't got a problem with that per se, because obviously when you're content marketing, everybody wants to be the first page of Google, so you'll do all the keyword SEO research and try and make your content better. I think that's a wonderful thing, to try and make your content better. Who doesn't want that?
Right.
But I guess where the grey area is are you actually copying ideas? And that's where I come in on the whole, well, what is an idea? Who had the original idea in the first place? It just opens up a whole can of worms, really.
Yeah. So, I think my take on it is, in today's world of the internet and all these different techniques, SEO and so forth, the end result of someone wanting to be on page one is they just want to make sales. They want whoever it is to see their content so that they can get more visitors and sell whatever it is that they're selling. So, but here's the thing, when I think about content, and as I've often said, I'm like you, I'm very opposite to you. I don't blog a lot. That's not, my strategy in my business. So I'm not constantly writing a lot of content. I do more with my clients than I do for myself. But one of the reasons for that is I really don't like having any blog posts on my website that somebody could see somewhere else. Because if I want to offer value to someone who's asking a question, I actually prefer to just send them the link to somebody's blog post. Here, read this, and then you'll understand it. And in fact, this is what I do with my clients. If my client's like, oh, I'm not sure, which objective to use on Facebook, I can explain it, and then I can send a John Loomer post to them. So this is one of the reasons why I don't blog a lot. However, I thought about this in regards to the original idea, and it took me back to my academic days when I was doing my 2 degrees, and particularly my last degree, where I remember that consumer behavior was my least favorite topic. Nobody could understand why, because I love psychology. I just couldn't get with it. And I remember crying over having to do this paper. And I took 25 journal articles in the bath with me. Mum, if you're watching or listening, I'm sure you'll remember when I did this. Glass of wine and with my highlighter pen. And I went through in 1 hour all 25 journal articles to get an idea of, I can't remember what the paper was about, but to get an idea of how I could write this paper. There was no original idea of mine. It was me taking what, you know, all the experts had written about and coming up with a different perspective. And I think this is what might be missing when people are writing content.
I think that's absolutely key, actually, have put in a different perspective or spin on it, because at the moment, I feel on the internet, the content is kind of like a remix. Everybody's remixing almost the same thing, which is a shame, because I wonder, is it actually answering your audience's needs? We're told answer your target audience needs, and you can go on Ask the Public and see what that is, but is it really? Right. Sometimes I don't think it is, and I think that that's almost a blind spot with SEO. People get too they get too blindsided by it, and so aren't actually writing good content. And when you start looking at other people's content and saying, oh, that got to the first page, I need to write something like that, well, then you're not bringing a new idea to it, and it's not fair also on your audience. My
favourite types of posts actually are the ones, and these are the ones that I will click and read, are things that say, for example, you don't need SEO keywords when you're writing a blog post. That now is original to me, because it's probably not so original, but I think we should be writing or offering more of these things, because there are gurus and experts and so forth, but things change. So if you're constantly doing that skyscraping technique and you're still doing that today, but something changes. For example, I could write a post today to explain how to set up a Facebook ad. It's not going to be evergreen, because now Facebook have just announced that from September of this year that your budget and your ad spend is going to be set at the campaign level, not at the ad set level, which, most people are like, everybody who's got all that content. And I did a Google search, where do you set your budget on Facebook? And there's millions of pieces of content that says at the ad set level. Well, that's not going to be the case when it comes to September. And this is a very, very simple example of it. But the point is that your content, I personally think that the content should be more of an opinion piece if it's about the same subject as everybody else. Because that to me is then a perspective. So you're teaching and you're training, and I can give a very clear example. I've just discovered in the past week that a certain objective on Facebook, which is touted as being the best for XYZ, does not work for my client. And what made me really happy is when I presented what was happening, my client actually said, well, that's not working for us. But if I were to listen to the gurus and in the webinars, I'd be wrong. So,
I think that it's interesting, because about the point you made about not following the rules and putting your own spin on it, or your own perspective, I should say, because the most popular posts I've done have always been the ones where I haven't followed the rules. I don't sit there and think I'm going to make a post about X, and I don't go through and look at what keyword's going to rank. I actually don't do that. And I know lots of SEO experts will go, oh my God, you can't find you, but I do not do that. I think about the idea, what I want to write about first, what's going to help my audience. I don't then have this kind of structure. I don't do it like that at all. So it just actually brings me on to really what I wanted to talk about really was, is there such a thing, moving away a bit from the whole SEO thing, but is there such a thing as an original idea? And I think Isaac Newton made popular the fact that we're all standing on the shoulders of giants, and I think that's true. I really don't think there's anything new under the sun. I think we can have new perspectives on it, and it can be easy for us online as content creators to sometimes look at what somebody else is doing and say, hang on, that looks like mine. And I was reading this really interesting blog post from a lady that's on Instagram. Her name's Emma Holmes, and I suggest everybody looks at this really good post she does about plagiarism and copying. If you think somebody's copying your ideas, she gives some tactics for dealing with it, obviously. One of them was don't go in strong, obviously. But it was really, stand back and think, hang on a minute, are they doing that? Or is it that we're just in the same space and these things happen? For example, a few years back, I was in a park talking to a friend in Budapest, okay? Nothing to do with content marketing or my blog posts or anything. And she told me this story about Mark Twain. I thought about it, and some of the ideas were really perfect to make an analogy about copywriting and persuasion. So I did a blog post about it. A chap come along and said, you lifted that from so-and-so scholarly paper. And I was like, I got it from a friend. I'm really pleased that somebody else has come up with that, but I'm sure I'm not the first to write about Mark Twain. Let's put it this way.
No.
And I'm quite sure Mark Twain probably got his ideas from somebody else as well. So, it's easy to look and think, well, that looks like something I've been doing.
I think it's really funny. I watch a lot of stand-up comedy, and someone was talking about the snowflakes, and he was being derogatory against this generation. And I think this is what's happened. I think the internet has opened up that we have more access to things and content and so forth. So it's super easy to copy without meaning to. And this is why whenever I write anything, I run it through Copyscape. I've tried all the other plagiarism tools, but this one seems to be quite comprehensive.
Yeah, I like Copyscape.
Do you know how many times a sentence that I've written that I probably thought of in the shower or walking down the street, or, oh my God, this sounds really cool, and somebody's already written that exact phrase, because that's just the way it is. But the point of using Copyscape is to be aware of that, so you don't get people coming up and saying, oh, you've lifted that from so-and-so. And the other thing is, this reminds me of the pre-internet days. I remember when I was living in the States, I decided I really wanted to invent, you know how you can scrub your back? This is very strange. This is not about content either, but you can scrub your back with one of the brushes. So I am a real big fan of moisturizing my skin. It's really hard to moisturize the middle of my back on my own. So I had this idea. I'm going to invent, like a brush where you put the lotion in it, and then you can, like a hand, and you can, moisturize your own back with ease. Obviously, somebody had already done that. But to me, this was like a genius idea. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to create this whole thing. Somebody's already done it.
That's so funny.
And it's no different from Googling. How often have you thought, oh, I don't know this, some random topic, a random question, and you type the question in, and about 5 million people have already asked this question. You're like, oh, I'm not the only one then. So no,
I'll tell you what, though, I think we should have met earlier, because you and your bath brush, because I actually invented the electric toothbrush when I was about 10. I thought about it. There you go. So we could have gone into the toothbrush and bath, the whole brush industry. We could have.
I'm telling you. Oh, but yeah, but it just shows that no, it's not. There is no such thing as an original idea. I mean, at the end of the day, in the field that we're in, there are other copywriters, other digital marketers. I mean, we talk about branding a lot and making yourself stand out and be different and offering something, that's unique to you. So of course there's no such thing as an original idea. However, there is such thing as you having a different perspective on
absolutely
idea.
Yeah, I agree.
I think people should focus on that. And I understand how great this whole content marketing is as a digital marketer, specifically blogging. But there's more than one way to offer content. It doesn't have
yeah.
And a lot of people just stay with that. Now, one of the things, there's two things I want to mention where I obviously am not copying, but I'm putting an original spin on. One thing is I've just created a video template script, because I noticed, and when I did a lot of Googling, that there are video scripts for ads, for YouTube ads, for doing certain things, but I didn't see many. for social media videos. And one of my clients is like, oh, I don't know what to say. And I'm like, you've got all the content, but she didn't have the structure. And I did the same thing as I did with my consumer behavior paper. I went to, like, obviously I had to go to all the YouTube script ones and make it my own that would make sense for, you know, one of my clients or any of my clients or anybody, because I'll put it out there a bit later on, to just say, oh, that makes sense. And then they can structure their script or outline and then change it as they see fit. Obviously, I ran this through Copyscape and it didn't come up, but nothing in there is original. I'm using some copywriting formulas. I'm not a copywriter, but I know how to read. So I'm using some of those and I'm giving my own examples, but it's not an original idea. And I'm sure anybody listening would be like, I've seen video scripts. But
nothing is original idea if you think about storytelling. All the structure is not original.
Right, exactly. And then there's another area, and I know I keep talking about my content crusher. I really should do some training on that. But one of the things that I do is I create a content vault, which is going through and looking at all the blog posts, especially the list ones, on any area, so that at any moment I can just pick it up, look at it. So it will say, you know, for example, I know you've just written a post on 404 pages and how they can be creative. So I could see that, and then I could just stand in front of the camera and talk about it. Am I copying, or am I just giving a different spin on something that somebody else is talking about?
Well, also the other question is, when you do an online course and you then take away what you've learned and teach it yourself, because a lot of people do that. Of
course.
And, you know, I see it also with my own courses. People will take the content. I mean, as long as they're not, that is the whole point of the course, to teach people things. Right. So it would be wrong of me to then say, actually, while I taught you, you learned, you took away, and you made money out of it. I want you to make money out of it.
Yeah, that is the whole point. It's very different. It's very different if there's
different if they then copied and pasted everything I did put their own spin on it.
Right.
And then, that's completely different, and I'm totally against that. But what I mean is, you learned something from it, you applied it, and then okay, if you want to run your own course and you know, share some of what I've learned, I'm happy for you to do that, because I'm not going to run out of things anytime soon.
No, and I think, I guess everybody has their own way of approaching it, but you know, I always think that karma is always there anyway. They can copy anything, but you can't apply it in the same way. Again, it's where branding comes in. You know, you and I could deliver the same presentation, but in a very different way and have a different result. And I think if you're approaching things, you know, in the right way, in the end, you know, things will work out well. I guess it's very simplistic, but that's why when I hear about all the copying, and I've had somebody do that to me as well, copying something, I'm like, oh, you're doing the same thing that I'm doing, but there was nothing behind it. It was just that, oh, I like the way you said that, so I same thing. I was like, but I take it as a compliment. I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody's copying me. I've made it. But then that's me. My ego is out there.
But I say imitation is the best form of flattery.
Yeah. So, and you know what? If somebody were to copy what I did and make money out of it, I'd be like, well, good for you then, because they've obviously been able to do it and it's worked for them. But there's a very big difference between copying and applying something and just straight up copying and pasting it.
Oh yeah, that's totally plagiarism. That's wrong.
That's very different.
Yeah. I mean, and also another thing I've had happen to me was I wrote something, and about a week later, somebody wrote something almost not identical, but it was definitely on exactly the same subject. And that person had a lot more followers and whatnot than me. So of course their content did a lot better than mine. And you know, that, you know, some of those big hitters don't stuff. I think it's wrong to go for the little guys like me. You know, think about what you're doing. And I think this is the beef with the guy that I mentioned earlier, who's going through and seeing and taking content from much smaller guys, you know, and that's, you just think,
now you're making me think of that whole supermarket thing like, you know, the supermarkets came and they took all the business from the little local shops, and why would they do that? It just makes me think of that.
Well, I mean, that's a whole another subject, isn't it? Because now I believe, you know, that's all changing in the food industry. People are realizing they're not getting the quality, they're not getting local produce, and lots of things like that. So they're going back to, you know, your local independent traders. So things come around.
Exactly. So that's what I think could happen. And again, I don't know who this person is, but I'm thinking I know who it is. I'm going to speak to you afterwards. But I think as well that when they're huge like that, and they're doing this and they're getting their followers in and so forth, they're obviously charging a lot more. And I think, you know, they're probably doing that whole numbers game, but not everyone's going to be able to afford the prices of their services. So in the end, they are going to carry on Googling and see who else is talking about it. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Because not
on this particular case, I believe that person no longer does their own copy. They've got
I know who it is.
An army of content people doing it for them. So it could be that they're people who are doing the content writing. They need a few checks maybe going on here and there. So that's why I didn't want to mention the person, because things are not always what they seem. This is only based on a blog post that I've read. It's on the internet. It might not.
If you read it on the internet, it must be true. Yeah. Well, interesting topic. Very interesting. I'd love to know what everybody else thinks. Has anybody else ever had their work copied, and what do they do about it?
Yeah. And was it? Did you follow up and find actually that it wasn't? It was a mistake, or nothing?
Coincidence, or it just wasn't an original idea. So they were just doing their thing. Yeah.
Because there is no such thing as an original idea. Okay, it's been great to talk with you again, Tara. Have you got any news that you want to share with our lovely listeners?
Well, as usual, I'm just building up my resource library. I'm working on my program. I've actually written some objectives, so maybe by June, I shouldn't say maybe, should I? By June, I should have my program ready. But the video script template that I spoke of earlier, that will definitely be in my resource library.
Oh, that would be such a great resource in the resource library for people, because I think that's something a lot of people struggle with. It's all very well saying everyone do video, but unless you've got a structure to it, it's really, really hard. I mean, when I first started doing video, I had to have like the post-it saying, right, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to do that. So your resource sounds a lot better than my very...
Post-it notes are not too bad to be fair.
But it kept on falling off the screen.
It's like,
and I'll be like, I have no idea what I'm talking about.
And what about yourself? What are you working on? What have you got?
The Utterly Compelling Freelancer course is currently on a very special discount at $149. That's dollars, people, especially you people living in the UK. You know, sterling dollars, you'll get it from and it takes you through how to run and build your freelance business.
Cool. Good. All
right. Love, peace and great copy from me.
And ciao, ciao from me. Bye.